Am I the a-hole for making my ex-husband give our son his car keys back? My ex-husband and I have a 17-year-old son who began driving and got his own car a little over a year ago. He has had a good clean record so far, no accidents. Early this week, however, he had a minor road rage incident, which I am describing as I saw on my son's dash cam footage. He was in a left turn lane at a red light behind two other cars. The light turned green, but the car in front didn't move. The car in front of my son, and my son, leaned on their horn but they still didn't move. They blared their horns non-stop for a good 15 seconds, but the car still didn't move. The light turned red, and just afterwards the car in front ran the red light and made a U-turn. My son, as the car passed him in the opposite lane, flipped off the driver and screamed "Stupid thing B" at the top of his lungs out the window at the driver, a woman who looked to be in her 60s or 70s. That intersection has long lights, so my son had to wait a long time for the next green light. Coincidentally, this woman lives in the same condo complex as my ex-husband and son, even though neither of them claim to have ever met her before or recognized her. But she apparently recognized my son and his car. She confronted my ex-husband about it a couple days afterward. She made my son's behavior sound a lot worse than it actually was. She said my son threatened and intimidated her, and also downplayed her actions. She said she made a tiny driving mistake and didn't give any more details beyond that. My ex took a look at my son's dash cam footage and saw the whole incident. Though he agreed it wasn't as bad as she made it sound, he was still angry at my son. He made him apologize, and told him he would be taking away his keys for a whole week, meaning he'd have to walk to school and everywhere else. He made a big deal of how he doesn't want his son disrespecting women and his elders or road raging. I thought his punishment was way too harsh considering the circumstances. I had a long conversation with my ex the day after he made the punishment, made clear how I felt, and demanded he give him his keys back. He stood his ground at first but eventually, and very reluctantly, gave in, since I'm the parent he spends the most time with and thus the one who has ultimate veto power. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife I don't care if she likes beards? My wife and I have been married for going on 10 years. We met in our mid-20s and are now in our mid-30s. When my wife and I met, my facial hair admittedly was patchy. But as the years have passed and I have aged, my facial hair is now full and supple. I have always wanted to grow a nice long beard like the masculine man I saw growing up. I always admired it. Throughout my relationship with my wife I have normally kept just scruff on my face. But I have also told my wife about my desire to grow out my beard. Her reaction is always to tell me, "Ew, that's gross," or "You need to shave, you look disgusting." This has now happened enough times that I finally blew up and said, "Babe, I don't give a f if you like beards or not." So am I the a for telling my wife I don't care about her preference on my beard? Am I the a-hole for turning the family against one of my brothers because he doesn't want me at his wedding? I'm 19, the youngest in the family, and I have 5 older brothers. There's a big age difference between my brothers and I. We've never been close, but I get along with 3 out of my 5 brothers. I don't know that 2 don't like me, they just don't. One of them, who I'll call Levi, would verbally abuse every chance he got. I was 15, and he was 25, I needed, and still am in therapy. He stopped but blamed it all on his struggles. He hasn't apologized, and clearly still hates me. The other, who I'll call Zane, made it clear he wants nothing to do with me. He hasn't said anything, but he acts different every time I'm around him. Neither of them have gone to birthdays, sports events, or even my graduation. The graduation part was a big deal in my family, but my parents said they don't have to be in my life if they don't want to. Everyone eventually forgot about it. So here's the problem: Zane is getting married soon. Everyone in the family is invited but me. I want to go to his wedding. I don't hate Zane, and I'd like to get closer to him one day. So I asked him why I wasn't invited, which he ignored. I'll admit I kept bothering him on why I wasn't invited, and why he hated me so much. I guess I made him snap because he sent me a bunch of hateful messages. I was upset, and talked to a friend, and she told me I should talk to my brothers. So I did, and showed them the texts. Levi sided with Zane, however the other 3 aren't happy and they're thinking of not attending the wedding. Zane is upset at this, and he called me saying I was trying to ruin his wedding, turn his brothers against him, and that I can't accept rejection. My parents aren't happy with Zane, but don't think my brother should withdraw from the wedding. Am I the a-hole for reporting my sister's therapist? My parents have been together for a long time, and they always wanted a daughter, even before I was born. When I came along, they were a bit bummed but not too disappointed. They kept trying for another child and faced some conception troubles, even seeking help from a clinic. Eventually, they succeeded and were overjoyed when they found out it was a girl. They told me to be a good role model and keep her safe, which made me happy as a 5-year-old. However, things changed after my sister was born. My relationship with my parents shifted dramatically. I felt sidelined, almost like I didn't matter anymore. I didn't get birthday celebrations, gifts, or a close connection with my parents. They said they had to focus on my younger sister because she was little, and I needed to understand that. Growing up, My parents treated my sister and me totally differently. They made me get a job at 14 to help with bills and rent, while my sister didn't have to. I never got the same treatment as her. She got new stuff, and I had to work for everything with my part-time job, even though I had to give half of my earnings to my parents. My sister was the favorite, and we never got along well. When I turned 18, I worked hard and got into medical school. But my parents said they couldn't afford to help me out, which really annoyed me. I decided to go anyway and work my butt off to pay for everything. Despite the challenges, I finished my degree and started my residency. My sister just finished high school and got into this pricey private college, living on her own with our parents' full support. I've kinda made peace with their favoritism, keeping my distance since I barely see them, living in a different city and all. So, when I visited recently, my sister shocked me by suggesting we go to therapy together. I thought it might help us patch things up, but the therapist ended up blaming me for all my sister's issues, saying I needed to step back for her mental health. I got seriously pissed, confronted the therapist, and, of course, my sister and parents took her side, leaving me fuming. Since I believe what the therapist did was unethical, I filed a complaint against her, thinking it was the right thing to do. Turns out, it's not as anonymous as I thought, and now my parents are begging me to withdraw it, claiming it'll hurt the person who was apparently helping their princess. I had enough and hightailed it out of there, driving 6 hours back to my place, still seething and feeling like I could have handled the whole mess better. Am I the a-hole for laughing at my ex and her husband for asking to have our daughter for another month? For some context, I-46M was married to my ex-wife Ida-46F for 21 years before she cheated and remarried to her now dick of a husband Dan-48M. We have 4 kids together. Henry 28M, Zach 26M, Cam 25M and Rory 15F. This situation only really involves Rory. Since my boys were teens/young adults when we divorced, they got to choose who they lived with. Rory on the other hand didn't. I have Rory most of the time. I pay for her schooling, medical, extracurriculars, ect. While Ida and Dan get her every other holiday and don't really pay for stuff. Well, for the 4th of July Rory went over to Ida and Dan's, then stayed there until about a week before school started. Rory confided in me that the whole time she was there she couldn't really do anything fun and was stuck watching her younger siblings while Dan and Ida went out. She told me she felt like a babysitter more than a daughter, which hurt my heart for Rory, since she was really excited to see her mother. She also told me she'd like to stick with visits again and not staying for a whole month or 2. Well, about 2 nights ago I got a call from Ida. She seemed happy and started talking about Rory and how she liked it there. She continued to ramble a bit before asking for me to ask Rory about staying another month. I laughed, which caused Ida to be mad, and she hung up. Dan texted me calling me an ass for laughing at her, and my brother said it was kind of mean to do.